This clip was the very first visual that any of us saw of Indigo. It was a part of her original application for the rescue project, and when we all saw it and heard her story, we just felt like she was a good candidate to be a part of this project. Indigo is originally from a rescue called the Pegasus Project, which is located in East Texas, and they're an amazing organization that works to help rehabilitate and rehome horses in the Texas area. And Indigo came from an abandoned herd. So they got a call that there was a herd that was out just kind of living in a field with no proper food, nutrition, or care. When they got there, they found that there were horses that were already deceased and horses that were starving and near deceased. And at the time, she was just a yearling living out there with her herd. They managed to capture the herd and then bring them to their facility. And once they got them there, they started working with the horses on an individual basis. And they found that although Indigo was very young, she was only a yearling when they caught her and brought her to their place, she was still going to be a very difficult horse. And usually when you get these horses at younger ages, they adapt a little bit easier to the training and the adjustments in lifestyle, but that just didn't really seem to be the case for her. And you can see these are some of the clips from when she first arrived with us, and she just had a lot of anxiety that she was holding within herself, a lot of tension. She was very herd bound, and we would put her in the round pen to prepare to do a liberty session, and she would just pace and run and just be constantly worried and trying to find a way out of the situation, a way back to her friends, her herd. She did not want to connect with us as people. But through that, we just kind of stuck with it and continued to go in each day and just ask her to connect. And connecting at first really just meant turn and face me. Turn and take one step towards me. Maybe 2 steps towards me. Maybe 3. And it just built day by day, very slowly, until she would come into the round pen and her first thought wasn't, how do I get out of here? It was, how do I connect with you? And how do I partner with you? And throughout Indigo's entire training process, this was so important for her that she had to mentally be ready and accept what we were working on. And it started at day 1, where she had to be ready for a connection. She had to accept it. And once she did, she just started to change. And once she started to accept that and started to change, we were able to then start working on new things, like introducing her to the flag and having her accept that also at Liberty. And then accepting, me start to jump up on her back, to put some pressure on her back, to start to think about what it would feel like when we prepared to mount her and ride her. And all of these steps were done with her at Liberty. And so you can see that she has the option to leave at any time. And she always had that choice. And I will say, she left a lot. She left a lot, especially when we got to the point of working on saddling. This was a really tough spot for her. I'm not sure exactly why. She had some saddling experience, but it was very minor. But this was a really big mental step for her, because you can see as soon as we kind of brought that saddle out, her first thought was, I'm out of here. I want to run. I want to get away. And so it was just kind of session after session of just showing her that she doesn't need to leave when the saddle comes out, that it's okay. It's not a bad thing, but that we weren't going to push her to wear the saddle and to go to the next step until she chose to accept it and she was okay with it. And this was, there were some days where I was out there for, an hour just trying to lug my saddle around and just try to get her to just stand and accept just the next step, just a little bit more, instead of just, immediately thinking about running and leaving. And she then started to, and instead of running, she would step away. And then instead of stepping away, she would stand and wait. And she just slowly gained more confidence and slowly started to accept it. But it was such a big deal for her mentally because it was her choice. And the freedom of choice is just so important for Indigo, and it really always has been and remains to be. And it was so clear from the very beginning because, Indigo had some, prep work. She'd been saddled. She'd had traditional natural horsemanship groundwork by, skilled trainers, and she still just didn't accept it, and she wasn't okay with it. And so whenever they got to the point of thinking about wanting to ride her, she would buck and bolt and, just want to leave and get away. And so by approaching it, by letting her choose and showing how she felt, it kind of allowed her to really tell us when she was ready. And instead of trying to hide her tension and, her anxieties, she was able to let them out and to really work through them. And once she was okay with the saddle, that didn't mean we just went to getting on her. We then made sure she was okay with the saddle when she was moving forward in all three gaits, walk, trot, canter. And then made sure she was okay with me, stepping up and putting some weight in the stirrup, me moving the flag around her. We then practiced dragging things. So there were so many steps that we went through to really make sure that she was ready for her first ride, that she was accepting of it, and that it was her choice, and that she was showing us that all of these things were okay. So when a rider did go to get on her and step on her, that it didn't feel like that big of a deal because she'd already had such a bigger foundation working on all these different pieces on the ground. I still remember when the rescue owners came and they dropped her off, one of the first things that they said was, if you never get on her and you never ride her, that's okay. We're okay with that. We just want her to be happy. We just want her to not, live with anxiety and tension. And if it means that she's not meant to be a ridden horse, we are 100% okay with that. And so they were prepared that riding might not be the right fit for her, and wanted us to know that off the bat, and wanted us to know that it didn't need to be something that we felt like we had to get done, right? It only if it was the right thing for her, if she was okay with it. And, I really wasn't sure at first. I did not intend to do the first ride. I actually told Patrick that I would prepare her, do all the groundwork, and get her, doing Liberty and going through all the steps. And then once it got to the point of the first ride, that I was going to then have him do it, because I am not as confident as he is on these first ride colt starting situations. And I did do all the prep work. And then once we got where she was feeling pretty close to that first ride, I actually had him come in and just feel how she was doing, so that, she could have another person that she felt and experienced with. And because one of us was going to be on the ground doing Liberty, and one of us was going to be on the, on her under saddle. And then once we got really pretty close to that point, I started to have a little bit of a change of heart. And I was like, well, I've done all of this work to prepare her. And through that, we've created this, trust and connection with each other. And I felt like she, if I got to the point where I felt good about getting on her, that meant that she felt good about me getting on her as well. And I really felt like it was different than just, getting on a horse because we need to get them started. It would be because she really actually accepted it. And all of these pieces that you're seeing, this was probably over the course of about 3 weeks. So through those 3 weeks, we did Liberty, got her connected, and then we worked on introducing to the flag, 2 different obstacles, introducing to the bareback pad, to then the saddle, to then me, sitting on her, climbing on her, but not actually riding. And then we did this different rope therapy pieces to try and really get them to understand that when things move, when you feel pressure, it's okay. Just turn and face us and look to us as leaders, and we'll keep you safe. And the last step of that before really getting to the point of getting on was a lot of dragging and getting comfortable with the stirrups moving and all of the different ways that the saddle might move when someone actually does climb up there and get on them. Because bridle and Liberty start to us did not mean we just hop on bareback and bridleless and hope for the best. It really meant to us that we've taken the time for them to accept each step and to tell us that they're ready for the next one, and eventually that they're ready for that first ride. And this is actually the last session before the first ride, and this is the point where I said, you know what, I think I want to be the one that does it. And Patrick was a little bit nervous about it. He would have felt better if he was the one climbing on, but he understood. And so we decided she was ready for the first ride, and I actually had him on the ground doing Liberty, and I was just kind of sitting on her so that she could feel the weight of a rider, feel what it's like to have a rider, but still have that connection, that Liberty connection on the ground with someone. And so we found that for some of the horses that are, a little bit more nervous or that need a little more support or a little more sensitive, that having that person on the ground can kind of help them bridge the gap, because they're really comfortable and used to doing Liberty. And so now they're still doing Liberty, but we're just adding a rider on top. So it's not quite as big of a gap as just kind of getting on and then needing to introduce them to all the leg cues and the different kind of movement and feeling of me asking her to go forward, because the forward and the stop and the change of direction is all coming from Patrick, who's on the ground. And the first ride, I was very nervous, and I think we both were not really breathing that well, but she actually did a fantastic job. And even though she was a little tense and I was a little tense, she still stayed calm. She ended up walk, trot, cantering, and her biggest struggle was that she didn't want to stop and stand. And so that was really the biggest thing that we had to work through. But we found that as soon as, I really relaxed and rubbed on her and just tried to tell her, like, hey, it's okay. Let's stop and take a deep breath, and tried to bring my energy down, that was what she needed. And so then she was able to kind of calm down and break down to a slower walk and then a stop. And then when I would move, she might walk again. But then when I kind of helped bring her back down by just rubbing on her and breathing and just trying to show her that it's okay. Like, even though this is kind of a tense situation, this is new, it's okay. And as soon as I made that adjustment and kind of helped her work through that, she changed. And then she was able to just slow her feet and stop and relax. And so it was amazing to see that even though she was nervous, she was still so connected to me up there. Even though that was a new experience for her, she was still listening, and she really tried to stay connected the whole time. In some of these first rides, we don't go forward quite this much. Like, some of them are just starting with walking and trotting. We don't canter for a little while, or, we're not spending as much time on them. But Indigo was kind of unique in that she had so much natural forward. She wanted to go forward. Forward for her was a release and a way for her to find relaxation. So we kind of embraced that and let her move forward instead of trying to fight it and tell her she couldn't go. So we went through walk, trot, canter on the first ride, because for her, being able to move forward up through her 3 gates actually helped her relax and helped her release tension. And that's not the way we necessarily would approach it on each horse. We really adjust depending on the horse and what we think is going to help them the most. But for her, being able to move her feet really just helped her kind of find that rhythm. And then when I went to get off, she kind of got a little tense again, because a lot of people, if you start a lot of horses, you know that getting on and getting off can be some of the most nerve-wracking parts for them, because it's just such a different feeling. And so then I had to just kind of spend some time wiggling and moving and really moving my legs and making her comfortable and understanding that I'm moving up here and now I'm going to go ahead and get off and not just jump off, because that was a little bit too much for her. And then after that first ride, we started to transition. So there was another ride where Patrick was on the ground. And then after, 1 or 2 more times, we got to the point where I then was in the round pen by myself, riding her, and we had slowly transitioned the cues where she was feeling my legs a little bit more each ride, feeling my seat a little bit more each ride. And the stick here is used to kind of help guide her and steer her. So I'm using my legs and my seat first, but this stick is kind of a way to help her and show her when I want her to go left or to go right, because she was already really used to sticks because we had done Liberty so much. And so she had learned to kind of move away from the pressure of a stick. So you can see I can use it to help her kind of bend down and slow down and come down to a stop without having to pull on her face or put a neck rope on and kind of fight with her with a neck rope. And as she progressed, we then started going to new places. And so this is a little clip from a friend's arena that we drove over to, and I think this was her first time doing Liberty at a new place, and this is a huge arena. It's like 3 times the size of our arena. So not only is it a new place, but it was the biggest place that she'd ever done Liberty, and she just did a great job of staying connected and staying with me in this new place. And it was just such a night and day difference already from the horse that she was when she first came here. Instead of thinking, how do I get away? She was thinking, okay, maybe it'd be nice to stay here with you. And then she actually got to go with us to the Iowa Horse Fair. So we had an expo that we did, and this was in March. So we'd only had her for, I think, about 2.5 months at this point. And this is her out doing a Liberty demo, and Patrick's working her and talking through it and showing her here. And it's pretty amazing that she can come to a new place that has people and crowds and a lot going on, and then do Liberty walk, trot, canter, with him, who she's barely worked with as well, and stay connected and show off. And then it doesn't mean she doesn't leave. She did leave a couple of times, and it was actually great because we were able to show an example of what to do if they do leave, and that it's okay if they leave, and that we don't punish them for that. We embrace it. But overall, she just did a really fantastic job here for having not been with us for very long and having going on a 10 plus hour trailer ride up to a new place, and her first experience around crowds. And she handled all that piece really, really well, and really just settled in a little bit more each day. And I was able to both do some Liberty with her up there and do some riding. So that was just a really cool experience. And this weekend was also the point where I had started thinking that I wasn't sure I wanted to adopt her out at the end of the project. Because all the horses that we took in, our plan was to adopt them out and find them homes at the end. And I actually found that I ended up trusting her so much and enjoying learning from her and working with her so much that I wasn't really ready or didn't feel that I wanted to let her go and have her find a new home. And so I ended up keeping her and adopting her as my personal ridden horse. And here you can see it was about a year later we were able to go to Aquafest of Kansas. And so that's an expo in Kansas. And she was able to do Liberty and bridleless demos, not only during the expo, but also during the rodeo halftime show. And this was just such a special full circle moment because it just wasn't something that I ever imagined that I would do, and it's certainly not something I ever imagined I would do with this horse, from what she came in at the beginning, and with us thinking we didn't even know if she would be rideable, to then being rideable, not only bridleless but bridleless in a big coliseum with a bunch of people cheering and cows and pens on the side and an announcer and music going, was just a really cool thing to be able to experience. And I'm just so thankful for all that she taught me and that she continues to teach me every day, because she's still a part of my team, and she now works with my other team of mares and continues to travel around and promote not only the power of Liberty, but the beauty in and specialness that these rescue horses have within them, and all that they can accomplish when we give them the freedom to choose and the power to connect with us and to tell us when they're ready. And for her, that's what made the difference, and that's what changed her from a horse that carried that anxiety, that tension, to a horse that wanted to be a willing partner and continues to amaze me every day in what she is capable of.